that is really weird. And I was like, why is that? She said, because when I was pregnant with you, you was a twin. And I lost your twin.
Firstly, I do apologise if the audio quality is different from my usual setup. I'm out on location for this one rather than in the studio. Our guests this evening are Louise and Brownie, who are going to be sharing their experiences with us, and believe me, it's going to send shivers down your spine. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we were okay.
Good. Yeah, good, thank you.
So Louise, if you don't mind, should we start from the beginning of when you started to experience these otherworldly experiences?
I think it was when I was about 5, 6. I always felt like there was something around me all the time, but I couldn't see it. It was weird because I remember seeing like things coming up the stairs, and one time I felt like something was laying on me and I couldn't move, so I had to call my mum from the other bedroom. And when I went to call her, I couldn't speak. It just come out as in whispers. But she heard me. She came in, and as soon as she moved, it had gone. You know. And then when was the next one? My flat. When I had Jack and Lana, it was just Jack and Lana there, and I could hear something coming from my bedroom, the little bedroom, and all I could hear was some little giggles from a little child, just little giggles. So I walk in there thinking, it could be Lana's in my bedroom or something. She's not in there, she's asleep in her bed, right? I sort of left it at that. And then I go back and sit in the front room, everything's fine. About a couple of weeks later, I will be sitting in my front room, and my radio went off. And it was just this weird song. But the weird thing is, I went over to the radio and it weren't even plugged in. So I literally chucked it out the window. And then we was having a birthday party in the flats in the garden. And I remember my sister saying, Louise, there's a little girl in your bedroom. She saw a little girl in my bedroom. So I walked in thinking, Lana must be in there, or my friend's little girl Amy, because they used to play together. Walked in there, there's nobody there. No child, no nothing. So I said to my sister, you sure you saw something? And she goes, yeah, Louise, I sort of saw a little girl in there wearing a hat. So that was freaky. And then one day I was standing in the kitchen doing my washing up, and in the back of our flats, we've got a communal garden. So you've got like a little green fence, like a park would have. And no one was out there, so I was doing the washing up, and I looked up, and there was this little girl standing there. And she wore this like white bonnet hat and like old-fashioned clothes. And I was like, am I really seeing that? And then I looked back up, she's still there, but then her head starts spinning. Not like The Exorcist spinning, but just around. And then it started going faster and faster and faster. And then I sort of look back down, shake my head, look up, and she's gone. All right, and then I left it at that. And then about, I think it was 2-3 months later, I went round my nan's to go and visit her. She gets all the photos out. And I come across this photo. There was a little girl in it. And it was the girl that I saw in my garden. And I looked at my nan, I was like, Nan, who is this girl? And she went, that's you, when you was little. Like, it really freaked me out. I mean, my hair started going up on my arms and my neck.
Wow, that sounds absolutely crazy. That pretty much time travelled in one aspect, because you saw yourself in the past, but do you have any memories from when you was a child that your head's spinning around? No. Do you have any memories of staring at an older woman? I'm not saying you're old.
No, I know.
Let's say, any memories of staring at an adult at any point in your life?
No. Weirdly enough, no. I've never ever felt like it I've never had a memory like that. But I do remember When I was little, sitting in my mum's garden, and it was just about the age that this little girl was. And I was sitting, the grass hadn't been cut, so it was really long. And I was sitting, my mum had put a little blanket for me to sit on, had my toys there. And it was my mum that told me this, and I kind of remember it. But she said, Louise, you were sitting on the blanket and her friend Jackie was round. And she goes, 1 minute you're just sitting there normally, and the next minute we turn around and we look, and there's all these butterflies flying around your head. Literally flying round and round your head. You don't really see a load of white butterflies spinning around someone's head. I found out what who that girl was. I think I did anyway. Because obviously my nan said it was me. But a couple of months after that, I was speaking to my mum, and I told her exactly what I saw. That my nan said, no, that was you. And she goes, Louise, that is really weird. And I was like, why is that? She said, because when I was pregnant with you, you was a twin. And I lost your twin. And the horrible thing is, once I'd found out what I'd seen, I didn't feel anything anymore. Didn't feel nothing following me, like I have done for years. Nothing following me, and it had just gone.
Did this feeling of this entity, which you believe may have been your twin, did you feel unsafe at the time? And was there anything that happened to you that made you think, this is not, this feeling, it's not right, there's something bad here, for you to feel like that it must have been like an evil presence?
When I first saw it in the flats, it wasn't a good feeling. When I was looking at it, it wasn't a good, like, oh my God, there's a little girl there. This was like, what the hell is standing in my bloody garden? And yeah, it looked like a little girl, but it didn't look like a little girl, if you get what I mean. Didn't look like a little girl. But I do also remember when I was a lot younger, I would wake up and I would have loads of scratches all over me. And I remember telling my mum, and she said, well, it must be a spring come out of your mattress or something. So I'll have a look. Nothing. No, nothing. There's nothing, but I kept waking up with scratches. So I don't know. And that's what makes me think it was evil. And every time that I felt something around me, it could be a day, it could be 2 days, a couple of months, but something bad would always happen in my life. Since I haven't felt it, I've had no bad luck. Everything's been really good. Everything.
Do you feel like that that spirit was attached to you until you found out who it was? So maybe it could have been trying to make you aware, but not sure how. Not sure how to make you aware, but to make you feel uneasy.
I think what it was I think like you just said, my twin wanted to just be recognised. That's what I believe anyway. I know it sounds silly, but it was maybe just trying to tell me and hurting me and things like that, trying to tell me that, yes, I was part of you, if you get what I mean. And now that I've recognised it, it's gone. Since
this thing has stopped sort of following you, do you still experience anything strange happening that's not involved to that particular entity that you... Do you have any more stories?
I've got one other encounter. So I lost my dad when he was 47. But before, we knew he was going to die because he was quite a poorly man. But I remember sitting in my front room in the flats, because he died when I was still living in the flats. I remember talking, we was always talking about it. Like, if you ever die, he would always say, if I ever die, I'll let you know if there's an afterlife. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of families say that, don't they? But he would always say, right, well, I'll do something specific. So just in case that the afterlife won't actually let me show myself, I will make myself known. And I was like, yeah, whatever, And so he died, obviously. And I think it was about 2-3 years after he died that, again, the radio, I was watching a film till late. And I think it was about 2, half 2 in the morning. And this song come on the radio, And it's not a normal song you would hear quite regularly on a radio. I mean, you wouldn't have never expected this song to be on the radio. It was just a song about horses, wild horses. Yeah, it just come on, and then I was like, oh my God, this has got to be my dad. It has to be. Because, like I said, you just wouldn't hear that song on the radio. And again, I went up to the radio and it wasn't even plugged in. But I literally threw this one out the window, broke it, even though I wasn't scared, because like it was my dad. But I just threw it out the window. The weird thing as well is, it was the radio. I kept it. It was the radio my dad actually bought my son. And I was actually quite pleased, and it made me smile. Because I then realised, you know what? I think that was actually my dad. And it made me feel like he's still around.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. That's quite a nice sort of heartwarming story there. Although sometimes when something spooky happens, and it can scare you a bit, but it's great that you felt like that nice, warm, calm, sort of loving feeling. Do you have any more experiences?
This one was my dad's. My dad was the sort of man, he never believed in ghosts. Never believed in ghosts. He wasn't that sort of man. So I go around my dad's and he's like, Louise, and he looked a bit weird. He looked a bit scared. I was like, what's the matter with you? And he goes, well, last night, Louise, I was laying in my bed, just reading my book, reading my book, drinking my coffee. And I looked up and there was this old woman standing in my bedroom. And I was like, Dad, didn't you freak out? Didn't it scare you, And he was like, no. Because the weird thing is, he said it was like she was meant to be there. Like she was just standing there. Like, like the old sort of 60s old lady, standing there just ironing. It was really weird. But he'd look down and it, like everyone does, they'd sort of shake their head, don't they? Look back up and he watched her just go... But my dad, he still questioned it after. Because he was like, well, it was either a ghost or it was a time lapse. Like, he thinks he saw a time lapse, an actual real time lapse. Or it was a ghost. You never know.
Again, there's this theory called stone tape theory, where they say that stones can actually, at a point in time, almost hold a scenario or something that has happened. It can hold that memory in the stone, and years later on down the line, it can play, and then someone could it can play, and someone can experience it. Because for instance, like DVDs, for instance, they are made from like a form of a crystal. And what that actually is, when you're watching a film, it's almost memories which are being stored on a crystal, and then you're obviously putting it in your DVD player and you're watching it back. So that's the whole sort of like premise behind, I think, like stone tape theory, that that stones that had the ability to capture moments and replay them over and over again. So it could well have been.
Yeah, that's kind of weird because, like, you hear stories, don't you, of, you say with the stones, like, you hear stories of, like, loads of people say camping and things like that, and they've all kind of together had that experience, and they all saw something, like in olden days, horse and cart, and everyone swears they've seen it, but it could maybe be that the stones are holding that memory and it's come out. Yeah. It's the same thing with like silly films like Annabelle and things like that. And you get certain teddy bears and certain dolls that can say possess, things like that. Which is really weird because I swear Andrew's teddy bear that he's still got from when he was a kid, this rugged old thing, ugly, keeps staring at me. Honestly, this thing keeps staring at me and he won't let me get rid of it.
Thank you, Louise. We've got my mate Brownie here tonight, and he's got some stories that Well, he's got some things that he's going to share with us, some weird things that happened to him in his life. So, yeah, take it away, Brownie, from whatever you remember, anything strange that sort of stands out and that you can't explain to this day.
When I lived at my mum's house, it always felt like there was something there permanently. And it always felt like it was in like a boiler cupboard at the top of the stairs, which was facing my bedroom. And when I used to try and go to sleep, I used to swear I used to see hands at the end of the bed. Literally as if there was more than one thing there and they were just moving at the end of the bed. I kind of tried to put it off as just I'm tired, and you'd hear really weird knocks and bangs and all sorts in that bedroom. I know no one's died there or anything like that. And that's where it all kind of began. When my nan died, when I was little, I saw her 2 days later going into Summerfield. Weirdly, and I told my mum, no, that's your auntie. So we went looking around the shop and there was no one in there at all. But I literally clearly saw her wearing the same thing as she always wore, little dress thing, and just creeped me out a little bit when I was younger. It's always felt like there's been something with me. And it's not been nice. When I was younger, it wasn't bad. It felt just like there was someone with me all the time when I was on my own. When other people were there, it'd be fine. It's as if nothing was there. But as soon as I was on my own, it felt like there was something there just like watching. And over the years, I've had a few little bits and bobs turn up. Well, the most recent one was I was living in Langford. And I went downstairs at about, I think it was about 3 a.m, something like that, go and get a drink. So you have to go down the stairs through the living room into the kitchen. But halfway through the living room, literally it was as if someone put their hand on the back of my head and just threw me to the floor. No explanation whatsoever. Just felt like someone was behind me and just went whack and pushed me against the floor. And I got up and looked around, obviously, and there was nothing there. It just felt like someone was in the room. And to be fair, as an adult, you've never seen someone go up a set of stairs fast in your life and skid across the landing. Kind of dabbled in a couple of things in my life, just because I've read up on them, and the first one's astral projection. A few years back, when I go to sleep anyway, I go into a funny like state when I go to sleep anyway. It's kind of half awake and half asleep. Sometimes, if I'm knackered. So I started looking into it. It came up one day on Facebook or something about it, so I started reading up on it, and yeah, you can get into the trance state and things, and you can go around. I've walked around my house, and I've actually put things in places while I was there, and they've actually been there, which is kind of strange. Because I've looked it up and they've said, well, if it's true, you can do these kind of things. It hasn't worked every time, but I have put things like on the fireplace, say, that shouldn't be there, just to check in the morning. And it seems to have done, unless I've got up and slept walked or something. But also, when I do that, if I get into that kind of state, it is still as if there's something there. It always ends as kind of a nightmare. It's as if something's like following me about the house. Like, I don't know, someone or something.
I remember a few years ago you telling me about your astral projection, and I don't know if it's sleep paralysis, but I remember you mentioned something about the man in the hat. Do you remember? I do remember you mentioned it, and I was like, so I'd watched a video about it like a few nights before, and I remember being really fascinated. I was like, wow. So do you remember that? And if so, just like to tell us.
Yeah, I do remember that. I think it was in Langford, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, I was starting dozing off, and obviously I got into that kind of trance state, I'm guessing. But all of a sudden, it was as if I was laying in my bed exactly how I was, I looked up to the left over my other half, Louise's shoulder, and there's a man standing against the wall with a hat on. And I was feeling absolutely fine. And then all of a sudden he turned his head round and looked at me.
Ooh.
Couldn't see facial features, anything like that. But I ended up with sleep paralysis. I could not wake up. I was screaming, everything, nothing.
I remember having to wake you up as well.
And it was only because Louise probably noticed 10, 15 minutes later, I was trying to scream but nothing was coming out. And she managed to wake me up, and I told her about it. There was just someone there.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because it was a new house as well, weren't it? When we moved there, it was a brand new house, and before all that sort of area was built, it was just like farmland. I've always, when I moved there as well, I always had this sort of feeling that they built the house on sort of an old burial ground or something, and it really made me feel a bit weird. Like we never felt like we were at home there. It wasn't our home. It didn't feel like our home, did it?
No, it never felt like it was ours. It always felt as if it was someone else's.
Yeah, like we weren't meant to be there.
Yeah, it never felt comfortable.
Luckily, we've moved now. But yeah, it just felt like we weren't meant to be there, and something kept trying to get us to go out, and in the end we gave up, didn't we? And was like, no, we don't want to stay here anymore. So we moved.
It's a weird one in the UK because unless the house was built in a church graveyard, like you don't really know. No. So if you think about it, like over the countless thousands of hundreds of thousands of years, the UK has had people living in it. Someone's probably died in every square inch. It sounds morbid, doesn't it? You know?
It does, yeah.
But yeah, so it's not far fetched to have had someone died in an area a long time ago, and whether or not they're still sort of like haunting that area. But that's still, it's quite sort of like there's something to it. So you never know. It could have been.
I remember when we first moved there, and we'd sit in the garden sometimes, didn't we? Like when it was dark outside, we had our little light in the garden, and we had an alleyway, didn't we, down next to the house?
Yeah, it felt like someone was
always
looking over the fence at you.
Always
just something
like
weird.
it.
It looked like someone was felt like someone was staring over the fence if
Yeah.
you're out there on your own.
To the point where Andrew's a man, right? And
Just about.
and he wouldn't go out there and have a look. I had to go and have a look because he wouldn't go out there. I'm saying,
I'm a big Jesse, really.
there you are. I remember Andrew when he was saying about his dreams. I remember him having a dream once, and I thought he was dreaming, but when I woke him up, I don't think he was. Like in that sense, I think it wasn't like a scary dream, because it did feel like someone was there. But all I remember was Andrew was going, Louise, help me. Literally, I'd have to sort of make him come to properly because he was half and half asleep. But I'd have to make him come to properly, and then we'd have to go downstairs to have a drink, and I used to have to make sure he stayed awake. Otherwise, he'd go straight back in that dream, or whatever it is.
I'd literally go straight back into like sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
I'd be paralysed. I couldn't wake myself up or move or nothing. But if I woke up and then within 5 minutes went back to sleep, I could go straight back into that nightmare, and I'd be paralysed again. So I'd literally have to stay up for a quarter of an hour, half an hour, and then go back to sleep.
So something really weird happened to me. So earlier on this evening, Sam, my other half, she was telling us some stories about some things that happened in the house that she used to live in with her mum and dad. And when we started dating, after a little while, I was staying over their house. And I remember, so I was asleep, and I was in a dream, and for whatever reason, in this dream, I was in this barn, right? And there was a group of people in the barn with me, and I don't remember who they were, but all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe anymore. I was trying in the dream, I was like holding my throat, and I was going, and I just physically couldn't breathe, and it really was like, sort of suffocating. And next thing I know, Sam's shaking me, going, "You're right, wake up." And then I sort of remember, I just sort of went this huge inhale, and I was like, "What?" And she goes, "You were like choking in your sleep. You were choking." I don't know whether or not I was actually physically. It was early in the morning. I don't know if I was actually physically being strangled, because there was this joke going on that apparently they didn't like me and they wanted to throttle me. But I tell you what, that was a really weird dream, because other than the other weird dream I have is usually that I'm in a dream and for whatever reason I need to find a toilet, and every toilet I find, it's like out in the middle of like a public place that everyone could see me, and it's like I'm struggling to find a toilet, so I was like, but everyone's looking at me. Then I wake up and I really need a piss. So I think that's what a weird occurring dream I have.
I have nightmares literally while I'm in freaking toilets, like a public toilet with loads of toilets, and it's the same entity that I see in my dreams and things. I can never see it, but it's always there. But it's far away, and it's as if I need to go to the toilet, and then I can feel it getting closer. And then I have to try and run away, and then obviously I can't wake up again, and I have another hissy fit in bed.
It's quite funny actually, because we've just been camping, haven't we?
Yeah.
And again, Andrew's a wussy, especially in the dark. And when you go to the showers, you got 5 minutes to quickly have the shower before the lights turn off. And I remember I was just literally round the corner washing the dishes that we'd had for dinner. You could hear Andrew just come running out because the lights have gone out. He would stay in there. But going back to the astral projection that Andrew was talking about, I remember, I don't know if it was astral projection or what, but I remember when I was, I think it was about 15. And I remember having, like, you get them vivid dreams. They look really real. And I remember, like, flying in my dream. But I was flying over, like, houses, and I could remember a specific house and all that lot. And then obviously the dream ended. You wake up, and I think it was about a week later, my dad comes round and he's like, should we go for a drive? So I said, yeah, okay. So we went for a drive, and there was this white house. It was like, sort of, like one of them old-fashioned white houses with the black beam type things. And I remembered that in my dream, and I was like, Dad, have we ever been this way before? Like, have we ever been here? And he's like, no, never. So maybe I astral projected in my dream. I don't know. It was just really, really weird.
Do we need to get onto the succubus?
I think we need to get onto that.
So, what's this? What's this about a succubus? for those that don't know what a succubus is, look it up.
May I have to tell some of them what a succubus actually is first?
I'll let them Google that bit. Basically, it's a kind of sex demon that you can summon. I'm very into demons and things, and a bit of everything, really.
Demonology, really.
Yeah, anything that tickles my fancy, I like to learn about and like to try things for a laugh. So I decided one night, I found a couple of websites that were really into the dark kind of things, and it wasn't your normal run-of-the-mill website. It was people that were really, really serious about it. I can't remember the name of it, but it was pretty cool. So I looked up, and it was going on about the easiest demon to get is a succubus, which is like one of the daughters of Lilith, the demon. So basically, I went through. You have to astral project to be able to actually even ask Lilith to send one of her daughters. They're not male, they're not female. This, that, and the other. And you go through this spiel of all this stuff, and there's me sitting. I was laughing as I was trying to do it on my own in bed. And the first thing they say is, if something's actually going to happen, you start feeling things touching your legs, just like hands, fingers, just gently, and it goes up your body. You have a weird little kind of shaky spell, but you got to kind of go with it. and then other stuff can happen, it might not. And basically this ended up with this something, I don't even know what it was, you can kind of see it in your mind, but it's there and not, sat on my lap in bed, and I was like, okay, what do I do now? So I just panicked and went, can you leave me? And supposedly that's what you have to ask it, and it goes, and it did. It was just a bit strange.
So Louise, with that information, do you have to keep an eye on him at night to make sure he's not doing anything?
Well, I don't know if you can can you call it cheating, or shall I give him a slap? I don't know. Well, if it's not a female or a male or a human.
I think we'll wrap this one up. But thank you so much for being on the show this evening, and I'm sure our listeners will actually will really enjoy hearing your stories and having a laugh. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's being a little bit having a little bit of light-hearted fun as well. You know, nothing can't always be serious because you know. But yeah, thank you so much for being on. And if there's any final words you want to say, anyone you want to shout out, go ahead.
Well, I thank you for having us. And I'm hoping to do this again because I do have a few more stories, but they're not mine. So yeah, I'll come back and tell you some more.
I've got a couple more as well, to be honest. So you might hear from me again. But thank you for having us on.
And I'll let you know if he summons a demon again, the Succubus, and
I might have
a little cheeky one.
I might have a go.
Well, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and I hope you have enjoyed tonight's episode. Thank you to our guests this week, Andrew and Louise.